Welcome, everyone. You're listening to the ImPerfect Podcast. I'm Kathy.
And I'm Kennedy. Join us on this week's episode as we discuss intriguing topics and people of interest that will inspire us to explore all of the unique pieces of ourselves.
We are all imperfectly perfect.
We're glad you're here.
Hello, and welcome back to our next episode of the ImPerfect Podcast. Do you find yourself being affected by those around you a lot? Like a lot? It's hard not to be affected by those who are in and around us in our lives and their actions. You know, you get the aggressive drivers on your way through the Tim Hortons drive-through. You've got people that you work with and, you know, have their little chitty chat over at the water cooler. And you've got people that you live with in your home, you know, your family and the friends that you hang out with in your spare time. They all have stuff going on in their lives, and it's hard for us not to be affected just in those interactions with them and being around them so much.
Yeah, I find for me when there's an aggressive driver behind me or, you know, they're riding my butt, basically, driving up the road, I find it really hard not to take that personally, just because it's, I mean, how can you not when you feel like you're in the way, basically?
Yeah. So that's what we're going to look at today. How and why people tend to take things personally, even though sometimes it doesn't really even have anything to do with them.
Mm-hmm. So we recently listened to a guy by the name of Frederick Limbo, we believe his name is pronounced, who discussed this topic. In fact, it is because he saw his own tendency to take things personally that he purposely signed up to be a referee for a soccer team in the UK. And that would be called football. No, it is soccer to them, right? We were having
it's football to them.
It's football to them, but it's soccer to us, right?
Yeah.
And he took this position to learn to not take things so personally. And with the UK, that sport being their number one sport, as far as I'm concerned, you got to think like he knew exactly what he was doing when he decided to put himself in a position where he would be essentially targeted, because referees are often the scapegoat for if there's wrong decisions being made, especially in sports. Like, people can get really heated about that stuff. And just because he's in the position of making said calls, he gets the flack for that a lot of the time. So, like, you loser, do you even have any eyes? What did you not even look? Like, you're an idiot.
Just think of when we hear watch hockey, right? I mean, I'm not into it, but we've all been in the position of being in a bar or a restaurant or just in someone's living room while this chaos is going on. And, you know, you've got people on different sides and they, you know, this one thought the referee made a great call this time, but the other people don't like it because that meant their team took a loss or what have you. And yeah, being a ref, especially in the UK for soccer, football, that'd be a big thing because they're pretty into it.
Yeah, and that's just one example. I can think of many where you have a position of having the decision-making power. You got to even think politicians. They say not to talk about three things with other people, and it's money, religion, and politics. And I think it's because politics, it's so controversial. You should add sports in there too, maybe for some people. But in a situation where politicians have this power to make decisions like that, and people all have their own opinions and own influences, of course they're going to get the, you idiot, you're a loser, and of course
Right.
you'd make that decision or whatever.
Right. So it would be, yeah, he bit off a lot there by doing that, but he went on to speak about his experience and what he did learn. So we're going to look at that a little bit later on. But, you know, as we were writing this up, I realized some people don't seem to be all that affected by, you know, what others are saying and doing, and other people do really seem to be affected by it. Some
Mhm.
people, they breeze through life and nothing really kind of throws them off in terms of interactions with others, or, someone cancels plans and they're like, hey, cool, man, we'll get you next time. Or I've even met people. Now, this is a thing for me. If I'm talking to someone or trying to explain something, I don't think it's cool if you're on your phone, like, because I'm feeling that you're not giving me your full attention. So that
Right.
bothers me. But also, I've seen people that are like, just breezing through and it's no big deal. And meanwhile, I'm like, could you put your phone down? You know?
Yeah,
So there's
exactly.
all different kinds of people, and I wonder how and why certain things affect certain people certain ways.
And perhaps it's because there's different upbringings, there's, I don't know, different mindsets. Maybe people have a history with, like your example, being mistreated with someone putting their face in their phone and not hearing anything that you have to say. And
Mm,
then now it's just like tainted for life of anytime someone has their phone out, you see it as disrespectful. It could be a lot of factors, even just your personality, like anything really. We're all influenced differently in life and all have our own individual stories and how we go about things. So it's got to have different influences in different ways because I know even between you and I, like I've done things or you've done things that to either of us, it's no big deal. But then, like, let's say you did something and I'm like, okay, mom, like, meanwhile, you're like, I don't understand what the big deal is, but
yeah,
it's really impacted me.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess it is. It's like the other episode we had where we talked about people have different filters that they see things through, and so one thing that would bother one might not bother the other.
Mm.
Our brains are pretty complicated structures, and in doing our research for the show, also we found that our brain thinks approximately 50,000 thoughts a day, but only 10,000 of them, for the most part, are positive. So that means like 80% of our thoughts are negative, and with that many negative thoughts, it stands to reason that some of them are going to be hurt thoughts, or feeling like someone was picking on you or talking about you or looking at you, or they did that for this reason or that reason, or yeah.
Yeah, thinking and overthinking and overanalyzing, and even things that we probably don't even think of, like the quick you walk in front of the mirror and you see that your hair is a mess, like negative thought, like all of the little stuff that we
Yeah.
just don't even notice because it's a part of everyday life. So,
And I know
um,
some people like to wear the cloak of, oh, I'm positive and nothing bothers me, but I think, we're all affected by this stuff to a certain degree. I'm not saying everybody is at the same level, but yeah, let's get real here.
the main point is that the majority, big majority of our thoughts, are negative, no matter who
Yeah.
you are. Maybe
Without
somebody's,
us even categorizing them as
yeah,
such, right? Yeah.
yeah,
Like just something as simple as, I'm hungry, I should eat. Oh, wait, it's not time to eat. In its
negative,
own
yeah.
special way, that's negative, right? Why isn't it time to eat if you're hungry? Oh, because there's a preconceived notion that you only eat certain times a day, or,
Mm.
perhaps someone's trying to watch their weight. Well, it's not time to eat because even though I'm hungry, and that does have a negative spin on it, right?
It does. Yeah, that's a good point. He goes on to speak of two different strategies that he learned in the pursuit of not taking things personally. So, there's two different options. The first is it's not about you. And I know that's surprising for some, like, what do you mean it's not about me? But um
Right.
it's
Yeah.
quite what he means by that is a lot of what can happen. So let's talk about the driver, the aggressive driver, a driver that's right up your butt because you're driving too slow. Maybe you're going the speed limit but for them it's too slow. In that situation, it could very well not even be about you because you're driving the speed limit, you're in no hurry, you're just, driving along, and then this person decides to come up and put off that aggressive energy, but maybe it's because they left 15 minutes late and they couldn't find their matching shoe, and they have an appointment that they've been waiting for 3 months for, and you're the one that's getting in the way of their life right now. So it's
Yeah.
quite literally got nothing to do about you. So you kind of have to look at, you have to assess every situation. Is this
Yeah.
even about me?
Yeah. Because our ego often does try to make it about us, right? We blame and think others should, cater to us or acknowledge us, or it's a very egoic way of thinking, but it in the end complicates our lives. But our minds often tend to go right, oh, listen, buddy, get off my touch the brakes, there I showed him.
Right. Or some people like to flip their middle finger at, like, everybody reacts differently in those situations, but yeah.
Yeah. So letting that part of our egoic mind go can cause us to get out of control in ways that then that aggressive driver behind you that's being impatient, now suddenly you've handed your um, peace of mind quotient over to them,
Yep.
right? Because you're not doing your own thing anymore. You're more concerned about what he's doing back there. And now you've worked yourself up into a lather because he's still right there and he's flashing his high beams. Like, what is he doing? Like, what? I can't go any faster. There's a car ahead. And all of a sudden you're in this loop, right?
Yeah, you're quite literally giving this other person your power. Like, this person you don't even know, you don't know who's in the car behind you. And meanwhile, you've given them the ability to impact your current mood.
Right. And that can turn into a constant struggle. It's that guy, but then you get up to the store and you walk in the door, and the guy ahead of you could have held the door and he didn't. I'm not saying that we're always thinking negative, negative, negative all the time, but it depends, like we spoke earlier, about what your thing is. And there's different things that bother different people, but trying to always stay ahead and always being reactive to how others are around you, that's pretty draining.
Yeah. And so the other one is that it is about you, and we're going to discuss that further in just a moment. But Frederick explains the concept of switching me to we. So what he means by that is me meaning like it is about me. You flip it quite literally. It's like the mom versus wow. It's the me versus we. And it's to try to see the positives and the intentions of others. So like the example we gave earlier with him deciding to be a referee for a soccer team in the UK. If people are yelling at him to, you're a loser, do you even see anything? And how
Put your
did you get the
glasses
job?
on. Right.
Right. That is, it's not about me. It's about we, in the sense that these soccer fans just want their team to win. So of course they're going to say anything to make you look like you're the one that deprived their team of winning, even though it's
Right.
got nothing to do with you at all.
So by changing it from the me, like the ego thing, to the we between more than one person, it leaves space for understanding to look at the other people's intentions. And sometimes when you stand back and you think, why are they acting that way?
Mm,
And if you can look behind the immediate, often that helps us to be a little more empathetic. The guy behind you, like maybe his wife was in labor, or
yeah.
maybe a parent was at death's door and he was in a hurry to get there. Maybe he was going to a fire call, who knows.
Mhm.
And if you think of giving the other person the benefit of the doubt, suddenly it takes all the focus off of you and makes it a more we situation. And yeah, maybe it's not about us. Right.
Yeah, it just gives you more concept in the
Yeah.
situation that's at play. And so in situations that say, let's say it is about you. So let's say someone says, wow, you've put on some extra pounds. And maybe inside you're like, yeah, I have. So if it resonates with you, I'm not saying it's nice for people to say those things to you, but is as an example to get my point across. If things resonate with you and that situation and how you're feeling and your own insecurities. So the weight example, or you're a loser, or you're being slow, or
Or you're
whatever.
selfish,
Yeah.
if you do feel that even a little bit inside yourself, it's almost like, oh, like, yeah, maybe there was, I think, and suddenly you start self-analyzing if there's any little bit of truth to it to
Yeah.
you. But on the other side of the fence, if somebody said you're a refrigerator, you'd be like, what are you talking about? Like,
You
that
know
makes
for a fact that that is false. So of course you're not going to be hurt about that. So in
yeah,
situations where you do have that little, like, it struck a nerve in you, you
yeah,
just need to be empathetic towards yourself and recognize these feelings. And this, however, is a time that you can choose to improve the situation by taking ownership. So there's a way that you can just, okay, I thought of the example earlier that we've always been in a grocery store where someone's in the way of getting something that we need. And some people are rude and they say, are you going to be much longer? Like,
yeah.
and, or you're kind of slow, or you're holding up the line, or whatever.
Or
Yeah. And you can just own that and say, because it might strike a nerve and be like, okay, yeah, I have been looking at these boxes of cereal for a really long time. And you can just say, you know what? I'm sorry. I don't, my daughter asked me to pick up a box of cereal and I don't know what specific one she wants. So I'm just going to be one more minute. I apologize.
yeah,
And so you've removed them from having that power, because another way of reacting is to get inflated about the situation and or allow them to take that space and move. And it's just all about how you, what's the word I'm looking for? Um, how you let that roll out. Like, you have the power in that situation to decide the outcome.
right, right. So if you do speak your position, let's say the driving the car slow thing, oh, not that you're gonna have the chance to see the guy that's behind you, hopefully ever again. But sorry if I was holding you up, but I'm not from this area and I was looking for a particular street and I couldn't find it. Or suddenly it doesn't make him less annoyed per se, but it kind of smooths things out sometimes a little bit if you can talk from your position, I guess.
Yeah. So, and by making these better choices, it helps further develop your own confidence that you can take ownership in your faults, and that's okay because nobody's perfect. And um, like Frederick was talking about, it's all about assessing the situation. A, is it even about me? B, if it is about you, you can take ownership of that, and it helps build your confidence because you can recognize where your faults are.
Right. And be empathetic to yourself too.
Yeah.
And, while you're there, because, yeah, everybody's got their stuff, right?
Yeah. So if a kind of cool metaphor is, if a $20 bill is crumbled up, it's chewed up, it's spit out, it's stepped on, it's whatever. It looks different. It has had all these things happen to it, but it will forever still hold its value of $20.
Yeah.
And in the same way, no matter if people attack, criticize, ignore, etc., pick another word, I don't know, walk all over you, your value will never fade. It can impact your self-esteem, but it's all about how you choose to react to the situation and whether you choose to take things personally, or, like we just talked about, taking ownership or speaking your truth in situations where you know that you may be very well at fault, but that's okay.
So thanks for joining us today. We gave you a few little tips that might help you to not take things so personally. I've struggled with this. I'm sure Kennedy has, as I'm not sure. I'm not going to pretend. Okay.
I was just
Kennedy
gonna
does
say,
too.
like, this information coming from us is kind of ironic. So
Yeah. It's a, but it's like anything else until you realize that you've been doing it, it kind of becomes your normal and you don't
Mm,
even realize you do it anymore, right? So, yeah, it's a hard thing sometimes. We've all been in this position, so yeah,
yeah.
maybe a different way to look at things. And I really enjoyed when Kennedy and I had watched that earlier, and we thought this would be a great idea for a show today.
Yeah. So thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you same time, same place next week. Bye.
Bye.
If you or someone you know has a unique story to tell, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at theimperfectpodcast@outlook.com.
For more information and how to connect with us on social media, you can visit us at our website, theimperfectpodcast.ca.
And from whichever platform you are listening to this episode, be sure to like, share, and leave us a review. We would really appreciate your feedback. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode.
We look forward to hearing your feedback and seeing you all find that extra joy and embrace your own imperfect.
See you next week.